Hi everyone, and welcome to the Knit California podcast. My name is Leslie. I'm a knitter and knitwear designer from Southern California, and in today's episode, I've got just a regular podcast for you. So grab something to work on, grab something cozy to drink, and let's get into it. Pups are trying to bark at people outside my window. It's great. I'm excited to talk to you today because I have some fun project updates, especially after last week's fall knitting plans. I don't have any finished objects because I talked to you about my latest 2 finished objects in last week's podcast, and I also have a small spinning update for you. I'm in the middle of a spin, but I can at least talk to you about what I'm working on. So let's get into it, and let's start with the one whip that you are already familiar with, and let's talk about my Tynn Line striped drop shoulder t-shirt. So I've got it in my Wildwood Stitches project bag from Scotland, and as a reminder, this is a new design that I'm working on. It is a spring summer design that's going to be coming out next year, but I have made some significant progress on this. Yesterday I joined it in the round, so here's the progress keeper with where I was last week. And I was able to knit all of this and literally join it and I think do one additional round yesterday. And I said, I met my goal. I joined it in the round and I put it down and I picked up something else after I did that yesterday. But that was a lot of work. These stitch markers were just helping me count how many more like white stripes I needed to get done after I had, I had another one here. I needed to do 4 more white stripes in order to match up my front and back panels before I could join in the round. I put that other one here as my beginning of round marker. I'm gonna switch it out for something more fun, but yeah, that's where it's at. It's looking really good. It's fitting nicely just as I want it to. So I'm really, really happy with it overall. As a reminder, the yarn that I'm using for this is the Sandnes Garn Tynn Line. And this is a blend of 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. And I specifically chose this yarn for this design because I've worked with the Line before, which is the like DK worsted weight version of this yarn. I really, really liked it. I really, really like the finished objects that I have in that yarn. It's a t-shirt that I have. And I wanted to knit with the fingering weight version of it. I'm just obsessed with this drape. I really wanted a t-shirt in the fingering weight version of this yarn, so that's what I'm making, that's what I'm designing. So I'm gonna be working on the rest of the body this week. I don't know if I'll finish the full body this week. Maybe my goal will only be to get like halfway through the body, but I'm gonna move my little marker right now. There we go. There it is. So that is the update on this project. And if you're looking for the Tynn Line yarn in the US, I purchased this at Wool & Co. online. Wool & Co., this is not sponsored or anything, they're one of my favorite places to purchase yarn online. They do have a physical store in Michigan, I think Michigan. I've never been there, but they have a really, really nice online store, and I purchased a lot of yarn online from them. So I was looking at their online stock earlier this week, and they had some online. So these are the colors, by the way. This blue is 6531, and the white that I'm using is 1015, in case you're interested. Okay, that is my Tynn t-shirt design. Let's move on, and I'll talk to you about, hi Lilipop, you're not allowed to look out the window. Let's move on, and I want to talk to you about one of my new cast-ons from my fall knitting plans video. And I decided to cast on as one of my first fall knitting plans projects, drum roll, the Traveler Shell by Andrea Mowry. So I got it in one of my new bags from Clockwork Fiber Festival. The yarn that I decided to use for this, this is my, well, I really wanted to use this yarn. This is the Gilpin Lalland DK, and the project that I had picked out for this was one of the Travelers from Andrea Mowry, either the pullover, the hoodie, the shell. So that's what this came down to. And we do need to talk about this yarn because this yarn is called the Lalland DK. However, this is more of a fingering weight yarn. So it's 50 grams, is 190 yards. So if we multiply that to 100 grams, that is 380 yards. A lot of fingering weights are at like 400 yards. So it's really, really close to a fingering weight. It's I don't know, it's kind of like between a fingering weight and a sport weight. I think the DK name on here is maybe a little bit misleading. The tension, the like gauge that it has on the label, it says 25 stitches and 30 rows over 10 centimeters on 3.75 millimeter needles, which is a very common fingering weight and sport weight needle gauge. So I'm very confident that I can use this for this pattern because the Traveler Shell is a fingering weight pattern, and the gauge on this pattern is 24 stitches over 40 rounds. So the gauge is definitely, or the row gauge is definitely very different. Like this, the yarn says 30 rows, the pattern says 40 rows, but you never really trust the gauge that's on a yarn because your specific gauge, anybody's specific knitting gauge, is going to be different than what is on a yarn and what is in a pattern. But you're going to try to get closer to what is in a pattern. But so anyways, I have started knitting this with this yarn. Basically, all of that to say, I'm not worried about using this yarn for this pattern, okay? And I have started knitting this pattern. So I started with the pockets, actually. I figured this would be really good to test my gauge. Although, to be frank, I haven't actually measured my gauge at all. But I have knit 2 of the pockets. So this was the first one I knit, this was the second one I knit. I did decide to block one of them. So my goal is, my plan is I'm gonna measure my gauge unblocked and then measure it blocked. I blocked this one specifically to the schematic. I could have stretched this way more. But on the schematic, it tells you like specifically the dimensions of the pocket. So I blocked it specifically to those measurements. But yeah, I think just the nature of this stitch pattern, it's very similar to a garter stitch, where like garter, it really stretches, but it's a, you know, knit purl pattern, so it just has the tendency where it can stretch a lot. So I could have stretched this out way more, I guess both lengthwise and widthwise, but I stopped myself. But so I did this very intentionally, but I don't know if you can see, but like without stretching the unblocked pocket at all. Like widthwise, it's exactly the same, and lengthwise, it's just like it stretched a little bit lengthwise. Maybe if I move this down so that it's sitting on this, you can see what that's maybe like an inch lengthwise at the top that it stretched. So that's going to be good to know. That is what we want to know in order to, you know, make sure that I'm knitting the body length to the length that I want, because it is a bottom up knit, right? So I need to do all of this math and just make sure that I'm using the right needle size, which I think I am. I knit this with the 3.5 millimeter needles, which is what is recommended in the pattern. This, by the way, is my very first Andrea Mowry pattern that I've ever knit. Someone commented on my fall knitting plans video and was like, oh my gosh, you're just going like full force Andrea Mowry patterns, because a lot of the patterns on my fall knitting plans video were Andrea Mowry patterns. And I replied to the comment and I was like, would you have ever guessed that I have actually never knit an Andrea Mowry pattern? But I have so many in my favorites, and I guess now is just the time where, I don't know, now's just the time where I want to cast a lot of them on. Yeah, I don't know, a lot of them are just really speaking to me right now. So now's the time. I'm actually knitting one. And this Traveler Shell is the very first one. So all of that to say, I don't really know my gauge compared to Andrea Mowry's gauge. So I did cast on with the 3.5 millimeter needles recommended in the pattern. Like in comparison to my gauge compared to Petite Knit gauge, I know that I typically have to go up a needle size compared to Petite Knit, because I am a tighter knitter compared to her. So that's what I'm trying to get at. But in terms of this pocket, like I was able to get this to the exact dimension in the schematic, so I think that my gauge is going to be fine. So I think we should be good. That's with the main needle, and then I did cast on the hem ribbing, and I knit the entire hem ribbing on 3 millimeter needles. This is a US 2.5. This was supposed to be knit on 2.75 millimeter needles. I think that's a US 2. Yes, but I didn't have those in my needle collection. So this was the best that I got. But this ribbing looks really, really good. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see how good it looks. Maybe you can. Yeah, I think it looks really good. And I did do the provisional cast on also, which was kind of terrifying to cast on 200, hold on, 252 stitches with a provisional cast on. You know, this one where you're going like this, right? And then doing the setup rows, right? Knit one through the back loop, slip one with yarn in front, knit one through the back loop, slip one with yarn in front. Then the next round, knit one, slip one with yarn in front, right? For, again, 252 stitches. That took multiple episodes of, what was I watching while doing this? The Paper, maybe? The New Office? That gave me like a sense of nostalgia. That was very, very cute. Well, I'm still in the middle. I didn't watch all the episodes. I was like, I need to stop myself and not watch all 10 in one sitting. I really enjoyed that. Maybe I was also watching The Vampire Diaries. I don't remember. Anyways. Or was I watching... Anyways, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I was watching. It took a lot of episodes to do that. And then I had to basically knit like 20 rows of this 1x1 rib. Again, 250 stitches. But I guess now it's done, right? And then I put it on pause because I was like, I'm not gonna move on and switch to the other needle size until I do the gauge math, block the pockets, you know, blah, 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 figure all of that out. So I have wanted to work on this, but I intentionally put it on pause because I need to figure that out today. But this was my goal for this week, was to knit the 2 pockets and the hem. So check, 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 that's done. Checked it all off in my journal. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. And now I can do the math and I can move on and start knitting my way up the body. So it's good. I am really, 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 really enjoying this yarn. This is a 100% lamb's wool yarn. It's really, really soft. It's really, really nice to knit with. So yeah, it's very different from the Tynn Line, and I know every time I've talked about the Tynn Line, I'm like, it's a cotton linen blend, it's very, very soft, like I have no issues knitting with this at all, which is very, very true. But in comparison to a 100% lamb's wool yarn, now that I have this cast on, when I'm looking at my whips, they're sitting on the couch and I'm deciding which one to knit on, I'm like, I don't want to knit with this yarn. Like, I want to knit with this yarn. This feels so much nicer. So, I mean, that's also just the problem with fall. We're getting into fall knitting. We're just knitting with really nice yarns now. And summer knitting is coming to a close. But is summer knitting ever really coming to a close when you live in really warm climates? Yes and no. Yes and no. That's the answer. So that is the Traveler Shell. I'm really excited that this is my first fall knitting cast on. I do have plans to cast on and start some of the other projects from that video. So make sure you stay tuned, because I think in you know, subsequent episodes of the podcast, you'll be seeing some more new projects from that video. So that is my Traveler Shell. I do have one more project, one more whip to talk to you about. Last night, after joining my Tynn Line t-shirt in the round, I didn't want to work on that anymore. And then I realized that I couldn't make any more progress on my Traveler Shell because I needed to block the pocket. So I went and did that. And I was like, I don't have anything to work on right now. I don't have any small projects. I don't have any big projects. I wasn't in the mood to go wind up yarn and like cast on anything, because that's a big project in itself, just to like cast something on, do a gauge swatch, blah, 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 blah. I wasn't in the mood to do that. So I went over to my whip graveyard, my whip pile, and I said, do I really want to start working again on one of these projects? And I looked through it and I thought for a minute maybe I would pull out my sock. And then I thought, you know what? Maybe I should pull out something else. And I did. And I think some of you may be very excited about this. I pulled out my book club cardigan. Guys, this is coming up on almost a year since I cast this on. I cast this on October 17th, I think, 2024. We're almost getting into October again. Like, this might have a 1-year whip birthday. But yeah, I picked up my book club cardigan and it took me a couple minutes to really figure out what the heck was going on with it. But I did. I figured it out and I made a little bit of progress on this while I was watching The Vampire Diaries. I do remember what I was watching last night. But here she is. I'm working on the front left panel. So here's my progress keeper from the last time I showed this to you on the podcast. Here's where I was. Literally, I cannot even tell you what episode the last time I showed this to you was. I don't even know if it was in 2025. I think it might have been before Vlogmas last year. It was the last time I was working on this. So, but I have done over 10 rounds on this. I think I've done 17 rounds on this. And you can start to see the cable progress. So I'm really proud of myself for picking this up. I have been thinking about picking this up for a couple months now. So I don't know, I guess it was just time, just, you know, the fall air, which I don't know, we haven't really had any fall air. It has been monsoon season here. We did have some really big rainstorms this last week. So I don't know, maybe that gave me the cable knit feeling. But yeah, here it is. This is, by the way, the book club cardigan by Sari Nordlund. It is an all over cable cardigan. Here's the back panel. It's really, really cute. I really, really like it. It's gonna be really, really pretty when it's done. Just have to finish it. The yarn that I'm using for this, I'm using a sport weight yarn held with a mohair. The sport weight yarn, this is Berroco Lanas Lite. And then the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in dark violet. Those can't be the colors. I'll put them on the screen. I have them written down somewhere. But yeah, so more to come on this. It was definitely a little bit of a challenge to like go back through, read the pattern, figure out what was going on. At least I was like at the very beginning of a section, and I wasn't like in the middle of a section where I had to figure out like what row I was on and like all of that stuff. I had literally picked up the stitches and done, you know, one row back, so I was on a right side row. So I could very easily figure out what row I was on and then just like read the instructions again for the left front panel, and go from there. So, and match it up with everything going on the right front panel that I had already started. So yeah, I think we'll be okay. And I also do remember, I know I talked about this in the fall knitting plans video, but I do remember that I will need to go back when I finish the front panels and add some length to the back panel, because the front right panel did not end on the same chart row as the back panel. And so I just want to lengthen the back panel so that it ends on the same chart row as the front panels, so that when I join it all in the round, we are joining on the same chart row, so that everything is cohesive. Right? That makes sense. And that will give my armhole more space, because you can see like this is the length of the back panel versus the length of the front panel. Although I don't know. The back panel definitely here needs to be longer. Like this definitely wasn't long enough. I don't know if that was like the wrong instructions. I think maybe it was. I don't know, something was weird in the instructions there, if I remember correctly. Or I read it wrong. I'm not sure. But anyways, it's been a long time since I worked on this, so I don't fully remember. But yeah, that's what's going on here. So I'm going to continue working on this as well and add it into my weekly project plans. So yay, very, very exciting. And I'm keeping this one in my Delaque snap bag. So very fun. It snaps. All right, that is all of the whip. All my whip progress. The last thing that I have to talk to you about is my spinning update. I've got it here in my little basket. Actually my big basket, but I've started spinning up Poppy. So this is Poppy fiber from Witchfire Fibers. I purchased this at Flock Fiber Festival. And Poppy is very special because Poppy is part of Jess's flock, her home flock. And I don't know, I just really love like personal home flock sheep. And when people like, I don't know, just knowing that someone that I know or someone that I've met has like done all of the work to shear the sheep and like make this fiber on their own. I don't know, it just feels really, really special. So I'm spinning this. It is incredibly soft, incredibly fun to spin. I'm spinning this directly from the Batt, which yeah, was like a whole thing on my last art Batt spin. I'm not having like any issues with it at all in this spin. Yeah, it's also completely white, not having any issues with it being a tonal or white at all. But I also have a project plan in mind for this, which is also completely different. I know what I want to do with this when I'm done with it. I'm gonna pair it with some other hand spun that I have. So I think just like all of that combined, like I'm really excited to spin this up, get it done so that I can cast that on. and see if my like project design idea is going to work out. And that's really what's going on with this. So yeah, I'm really, really loving it. It's just so soft and I'm loving working with it. And it's got this like sheepy, like lanolin smell and like feel. Like I have to wash my hands after every spin session because it just like, it just has that feel to it. And yeah, it's just really nice. So I have half of my second bobbin, my second Batt left to spin. I'm gonna do that today and then I'm gonna ply it up and wash it. And so this week, actually, maybe I'll be able to cast on my new design idea. We'll see. I'm excited. I'm excited. So that's my spin update for you. And I think that's everything. Let's see. Do I have any announcements for you? The Rachel is Knitting Ireland knitting tours, both of them for 2026, still have signups available for them. So the first one is in May, is going to Ireland and Northern Ireland, and the second one is the original Ireland knitting tour in October of 2026. Both of these tours are just going to be fantastic, so much fun. If you want to go and have a whole knitting related vacation planned out for you, where you meet new people, eat really good food, have workshops, and visit amazing places in Ireland, this is the trip for you. So the link for both of those tours will be in the description box down below. Like I said, or I've mentioned a bunch of times in this video, if you haven't watched my fall knitting plans video, I will link that here as well. That was a really, really fun one, so go and watch that from last week. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed to my channel. It really means a lot. It really helps me out. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!